All right. Hello and welcome to our session on Google CS First. I assume most of you that chose to pop in know what CS stands for, but it is computer science if you did not. And if the idea of computer science scares you away, I encourage you to stay and watch. It will hopefully encourage you to see the importance in computer science, whether you have a passion for it or not. I think computer science can be easily integrated no matter what level you teach at or content area. And so hopefully you see that today. And we're going to be focused on this awesome resource that makes it super easy to introduce computer science, even if you're not super familiar with coding or computer science thinking. So we will get started. My first thing is I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. Sorry. My name is Ariel Jinkard, and I will be an instructional coach next year in the Spring Hill School District. I am an ISTE certified educator, which I encourage anyone who is looking for a challenge. It's a great way to really dig into the ISTE standards and challenge yourself in thinking of how we integrate technology well in the education system. So that's an awesome little plug there. But I am excited to share a little bit more about computer science today. It is a passion of mine. So that's kind of the first thing I want us to think about here, just what is computer science? It's one of those things that I think a lot of times we go straight to coding and we just think coding and we hear coding and we know of code.org. But I want to kind of zoom out and focus on computer science. And so just take a moment to really think about what that is. And then we're going to dive into a definition here. And the reason I share this, you're like, hey, this is a Google CS session, but I think the why is so important. So before we dig into a resource or a tool, we have to know why we would spend time and invest in a resource. So I really like this definition. It's kind of wordy and it's big, but I like it. So it says computer science is the study of computers and algorithmic processes, including their principles, their hardware and software designs, their applications, and their impact on society. And that last little bit, the impact on society, I think is the most important part. When I think of computer science, it's not just the how do I code, what language am I using, that piece, but we think of computer science, we're thinking about how we use computers and technology to solve problems and make our world a better place. And so that is what I would like to kind of focus on today as we're thinking about how we want to use Google CS First. Another thing to kind of keep in mind as you think about computer science, here's some things that's not, because a lot of times computer science gets put in this big bubble of just anything computer related. And so these are some things it is not: computer literacy, ed tech, digital citizenship, and informational technology. And there's kind of a short little blurb under there. And you might think, well, like, who really cares? But there is a difference. And I think it is important because those other four concepts are really about how we use technology. But computer science is teaching the why and how it works. And in order for our students to be producers and creators, they have to understand why and how things work. And so specifically with computers and technology and how, the world of apps and software can impact our world and technology in general. There's a lot of great examples on code.org, the multiple fields that technology impacts. Computer science impacts is unbelievable. So if they want to go into the medical field, computer science is affecting so many different elements of the medical field. We think about 3D printing and designing prosthetics. And if you think about there are contacts that diabetic people with diabetes can put on their eye, and it actually checks their insulin levels. But it takes computer science to make that work. So if they are aware of all the different fields and how computer science impacts all the different fields, no matter what they're interested in, there's going to be computer science somehow involved. And so I think it's important for them to see and kind of start being innovative and thinking about how they can kind of solve some of our world problems with technology. And that's what computer science is all about. This is kind of a lengthy little quote here from the computer science framework, but again, I think it's important. And I actually included this, I've shared this before, but I chose to include this today because I just saw someone tweet the other day and they were like, why is there such a big push to make everyone know how to code? And people are saying it's just as important as reading and writing. And they didn't agree with that. And I don't choose to get into debates on Twitter because I think that's silly. But I do like seeing different opinions, and it challenges my thinking too of like, well, why do I think, coding, computer science is so important? And do I think it's important as reading and writing? And I do. Our kids are so engaged with technology, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's a whole nother debate, right? But reading and writing is not going by the wayside. It is still very important. But for them to be able to use technology to express themselves, just like you can with the written word, to learn from, to share ideas, computer science allows you to do that. And so I think it's really important that kids are exposed to this. And I think that's why I like to differentiate the idea of computer science versus just coding, because there's so much more to it than just the coding part. I don't expect every kid to become a coder when they grow up. I don't believe that at all. But I do believe if you're a doctor and you're trying to innovate for a specific disease or a virus or, all the things that we've just experienced last year, those doctors, if they have a general understanding of how computer science works and the principles behind it and the process behind it, they may come up with more innovative ideas, and they may not be able to act on it, but they can think of those ideas and how technology can impact and solve some of the problems that we're facing. One of the examples I have is a few years ago, we were doing a PBL and we were pretending there's a zombie apocalypse in the United States, and each group had different regions. And I asked them, how are you going to communicate to the people what's going on, where things are going, where are the zombies? How do we keep people safe? And I had one group, they told me, well, we would make posters and put them up on trees. And I was like, really? So during a zombie apocalypse, you're going to walk around and you're going to put up posters on a tree. And when that information changes, what do? Well, you go put up new posters. And I was like, okay, how do you get information? Do you walk down the street and you see things posted on the tree? They were like, no. And I was like, so how do you get your information? Most of them, as fourth graders even, were like, my phone. And so I encouraged them to think about how could you use your phone or a phone to communicate with people. And that's when they started coming up with the idea of, well, we could design an app and we could use an app to communicate with people. And I was like, okay, what does your app look like? And so they started sketching out what the main page of the app looks like and what buttons would be there. And there would be a map that they could click on and it'd be integrated with Google Maps. And there on Google Maps, there'd be little icons like where the zombies were, and you could click on it and get more information. I mean, then the ideas just started rolling. And that was computer science. They were thinking about how to use technology to solve a problem. And they were like, but Mrs. Jinker, we don't know how to code this. And I was like, you don't have to worry about that. You can hire somebody that knows how to code it. And then they were like, okay. So they drew the design of the app and they thought about how it was going to function and how it was going to help people. And that's what the heart of computer science is all about. It's not about whether you can code it or not. Yes, there needs to be someone that does, but not every person needs to know how to code it. It's just like any team. We have people with different strengths and different skills and abilities, and that's what we do with every other field. So it's the same for this field. There are going to be people that are the designers and thinking of the function, and then there's going to be the people that code it. So when we talk about kids getting started, especially, I like to start with visual programming languages. Instead of jumping in trying to learn JavaScript, especially when kids are just learning how to read and write, it's really difficult. It's like learning a whole nother language. So using the visual programming languages, which also called block-based coding, is a great entry point. So Make Code, Blockly, Scratch and Scratch Junior are kind of the big ones out there. I've used the Make Code because we have microbit, very similar, but I still love Scratch. It's one of my favorites. And what's awesome is Google paired up with Scratch years ago. I don't even know how long it's been now. But there was actually some educators who wanted to create a tool that allowed any teacher, whether you had that computer science degree or not, to teach computer science to students. And we're kind of in that age, right, where a lot of us didn't grow up with exposure to this. I didn't have any exposure to computer science or coding, or, I mean, I think there was maybe one class in my high school, but I definitely wasn't interested in, because I didn't know how it applied to me. So we have a whole lot of teachers in the field that don't have experience, that didn't learn how to code. They have no idea. And so it's kind of intimidating. And so Google CS First is a video-based curriculum that can teach kids how to get started with Scratch coding. And also what I love about it is teaching those the purpose behind it, giving them reasons to code and building up kind of problem solutions and a variety of purposes for coding and creating in Scratch, which I think is super exciting, because that is kind of what I've been talking all about. It's not just about the code, it's about why are we coding? What are we creating with code? So I'm gonna kind of walk through, we're gonna start at the very basics, and we'll go all the way through kind of looking at a lesson and actually creating in Scratch. So if you're familiar with Scratch, there are a few things that have changed. There were some updates in February with Google Classroom, and I'll kind of briefly go over that kind of stuff, but they've just continued to improve it. A few years ago, I got to be on a pilot for this new dashboard, and it was just exciting that they were asking and wanting to know. So Google CS First has evolved a lot since it first started. And I think that's exciting that they're listening to educators and trying to make it more user-friendly. So when you go to the Google CS First website, you'll see there is csfirst.withgoogle.com. You can actually access and look at any of the lessons without logging in at all, which is another thing I love. So when I'm showing teachers and kind of getting them excited about it, you can look at everything. You can go through all the lessons without creating an account. And it is paired with Google. So it's not like creating an account, logging in with your Google is how you get in. But it's just, I love how accessible it is. If a kid forgets their username, they're not totally stuck. They can at least watch the videos and kind of get started that way while you're problem solving. So when you go to the site, you would just click on the word curriculum, and then there is a variety of videos or projects there, lessons. And so I kind of wanted to point out there's kind of two different kinds of lessons within the curriculum. There's like the standalone lessons, typically like 1 to 2 hour lessons. They're kind of quick intro projects. They're great for an after school club or a fun activity that maybe you want to just get them exposed. So those are great. And then there's full units. So if you look over on the right side, the fashion and design one, you'll notice that it says 8 lessons versus animated name says 2 lessons, which is actually only 1. And then the time as well. So you'll notice on animated name, it says 1 to 2 hours. Fashion and design is 8 to 12 hours. So there's kind of a big difference there. So you're going to have several standalone projects, lessons, and then you have units. So kind of depending on how you want to use Google CS First, you'll want to think about the time that it takes to get involved. I would say the times are pretty accurate as well. Animated name, I've totally done in 1 hour. Some of the kids that really get into it want more time than that. And so it's a great, like, hey, you can keep working on this in your classroom. And then you'll also notice there on the very first, before it says how many lessons and hours, is it also gives a level. So there's introductory, there's intermediate, and there's advanced. So that's another kind of gauge of where you want to start, which ones you want to pick. It's also a conversation, like once we get going, and sometimes I open the gate and say, hey, you can choose which lesson you would like to do now. I talk to them about that. If you choose to jump into an intermediate or an advanced, just know that there might be some things that you have to work through. You might have to rewatch videos and kind of dig in and take your time. And so them kind of just drawing their attention to that, I think, is important for them to gauge, what kind of challenge they're up for. All right, so we are going to jump over here. I'm going to actually switch my screens here. And I am going to show another screen where I'm going to walk through live. Maybe. There we go. All right, so this was the site that has the curriculum. So like I said, clicking on curriculum here, and then when you scroll through, you'll see some different like sections. So these are subject specific. You'll see a lot of these are ELA connected, figurative language, dialogue. A lot of them are 1 hour. And then there's the hour of code activities. These are a little more fun activities. That is where the animate your name is. The kids love that one, and I usually actually start there. But the create your own Google logo is a fun one. And sometimes they do with the Google logo project, I feel like it's every year, but they'll do like a $50 to donors choose if you have like 20 kids participate. So that's kind of a cool thing. You should watch for that. And then the multi-day units are down at the bottom. So then you'll notice there is a breakdown of the introductory, the intermediate, and then the advanced ones. So these are all the units that are available and lessons that the kids can work through. And you can assign lessons, or you can kind of just give them, free range, and they can choose what they want to do in here. And I'll show you that here in a second. But I want to start with clicking on animate a name. So when we get here, this is where if I'm logged in as a teacher, you can see it says add to class. We're just going to view it for now. And so this is what it looks like from your teacher view. So the lessons are here. And if I scroll down, you can kind of see the breakdown of the 3 parts that they would work through. And then at the top, there's some other resources for teachers. So there's an examples, which is nice. If your kids want to see more, or you feel like you maybe need to encourage them, or they're stuck. Sometimes kids get really they're like, I got my letters in, but I don't know what to do with them. So showing them some more projects sometimes gets them excited. And then another section, which is helpful, is the materials. And this is really for teachers. They have, getting started, which is CS in general, but the lesson plan, if you need something more scripted, if you're feeling uneasy, that's there for you. And then there's some other things you can print out here: rosters, stickers, posters, certificates. So lots of fun things that you can do here. Another thing that I thought was cool is they added these offline cards. And it's actually like if you're in a pinch and like the computer's not working, here are some things that you can do, because we all know that happens, right? I've definitely been in that boat where the computers were not working and couldn't get logged in, Wi-Fi's down, whatever. And so that's kind of nice to have in your back pocket as well if you are stuck. So yeah, if I go back to lessons though, we're going to actually watch part of it. I'm not going to play the whole video, but I want to play part of the introduction video because I think it is cool to see the professionalism of the videos that are made and just the ease for students. So I'm going to switch to that here.
And I work in Google's Computer Science Education Department.
And I'm Fiona. I teach CS First classes, and I'm a team leader with 4-H, America's largest youth organization where kids learn by doing.
Yeah! In this activity, you'll use...
I don't think the sound is working, but you can kind of see, I'm not going to play it because for whatever reason, the sound isn't playing. You will watch the video as the first thing. It kind of gets them started. I'm going to switch back to, let's see here. Nope, that's not what I wanted. There we go. So when we go here and you click on start, that video is built into here. So this is the video that I was trying to play, animate a name. And what I love about it is a lot of videos, like tutorial videos. Oh, you could hear it. I'm sorry. I should have played it longer then. A lot of tutorial videos don't start at the very beginning. Like I feel like they make assumptions that kids like already know how to get in and logged in and started, and then they're just showing like the nitty gritty. And what I love about these videos is like it introduces the project, but it also starts at the very beginning. Like it's like open a Scratch window, like you're going to go back and forth between tabs. And like, I just love that it gets started at the very basics. I really appreciate that. They're very, very well done. And then this is a button that the kids miss a lot, is this starter project, but that will actually open Scratch and get them started. And we're going to look at that here in a little bit, but just while we're here, I wanted to point it out. And then all of these videos are what we'll dig into here in a little bit, where they have different videos they can check out to make their letters do different things for the project. So there's just a lot of resources here. A lot of times the kids are like, how do I do this? And I'm like, well, let's see, is there a video that shows you how to do that? And then they're like, oh, okay. So it really empowers them to kind of get in that mode of teaching themselves, watching video to teach. You know, so many kids and myself, we can learn from watching YouTube videos, right? And so this is kind of helping them learn how to do that in a scaffolded way, which is exciting. All right, so I'm going to jump to now as a teacher, and actually I have some slides here to help. Never mind, I'm just going to jump straight in here. So when you get to Google CS First, there's a sign in button at the top. And so you can see that I'm signed in right here. And you can log in as a teacher. And at that point, you have to log in with a Google account. And then you kind of have two options with logging in. So my school district actually does not have CS First turned on in the admin console. So like if you try to log in with your school account and it says you don't have access to this, that's something you have to talk to with whoever your Google admin for your district is. I'm logged in a personal account, which you can do. So you have to have a Google account, but it doesn't have to be a Google for Education account. So I just wanted to let you know that. And then once you get logged in, then you'll see all your classes here on your dashboard. And I'm just going to briefly show you how to add a class, because there's a few different options that they've actually added, which is really exciting. So in February, Google added Google Classroom integration and the ability for students to log in using their Google Workspace for Ed account. And which I love, the best news was when they built Scratch into Google CS First. So if you've used it in the past, you may know that even if you were using Google CS First, it would send you to scratch.mit.edu. And this is actually the reason we were not allowed to use it, is because in the Scratch community, there is an open community where kids can share their projects, they can comment on projects, and that was where our admin had an issue with it. And so we just didn't use it this year, and I'm super excited now that it's built into Google, so it shouldn't be an issue for future use. So that's really exciting if you do have Google for Education accounts. I cannot show you the Google Classroom integration, but you can import classes now from Google Classroom. So if you've got a roster, you can just import that way and create your classes. Because I don't have the Google Classroom account, I can't show you that. But there is still these two options where you can have the students use their education accounts, or you can create their own account. So I can put in a class name, and then I can choose the color, and then I'm going to click Create CS First Accounts. When it opens this, you would have nothing there, and you click on People, and this is where you can add students. Now, you don't have to add students individually. If you want them to log in and you trust them to remember their username and password and record it down, then they can log in. And I'll show you, I'm actually going to give you an opportunity if you want to log into my class as a student and see their view, you can. But you just go to Add Students, and you just list them out here by name, and you can copy and paste that. If you want to create some extra accounts, like maybe you don't know their names, or you want to have a couple extra seats in the class, this will add a couple extra seats without putting in a name. And then you would click Create an Account. What's super kind of weird about this part is when you click Create, it says and download roster. What it actually creates is a Google Sheets, and it has their name, and it creates a username and password for them. But it's not stored in your dashboard here. So it will tell you, you need to remember this basically, which is kind of an extra step, but I guess if you have it saved in your Google Drive, then it shouldn't be too big of a deal, but just kind of show you what that looks like. Oh, it's going to open another window. I lost my window. There we go. Your students are listed here, and then you'll notice the ones that I did not create, it's like frozen. Let's try that again. So the two that I had student names for showed up first, and then the last two, you'll notice it says no name. Those are the additional counts that I added. So then I can go in and add their name once I know, like maybe I thought I was going to add a student later. I guess it's the same name. And then I can go and fill that in. But you'll notice like their password does not show up. That's because it downloaded into a Google Sheets file that you have to keep track of. So that's kind of like a weird part. Hopefully you have the Google for Education because I think that's the easiest way to manage your students. But it is possible still to do it this way. And you can reset passwords. It's just you have to reset all of them. So I'm going to kind of go back here because I actually created a class for today. And you'll see that in this one, I have some student names here that I just filled in. I have some no names. And then if you want to join in as a student, I'll show this here, but you can just go to this site and you can, or put in that code and you can actually join the class. So it's a little strange in that, I'm going to see if I can share. It's like really trying to protect kids from like creating another account. So when you get to the site, it will say enter your username and password, but you don't have one. So down below, you would click on the little blue link that says create an account. And once you click on create an account, it again stops you like, only create an account if your teacher tells you to. You have to remember username and password. So the reason you're going through this is because you're manually having students add themselves to your class. And it's kind of preventing, like a lot of times I would have kids, they signed in one way this day, and then the next day where they clicked on something else and were trying to sign in and they ended up creating a whole nother account. And so it's just really trying to protect from you getting one kid creating multiple accounts. And so then it automatically creates a username and password. They have to click that they wrote it down and told their teacher. And then if they want to stay signed in, and then they can click sign in. And then they've got it in their dashboard. So then this is what the student dashboard, the name of the class is here. And then I have an assigned unit. So then they can click on that and they can see what they need to do and what they need to work on. So that is kind of what it looks like from the student view. And then I think, trying to make sure there's nothing else I was going to share with you about that. All right, so we're going to dive in now and look at an actual class and go through the animated name and kind of look at what it looks like when they open that up. So if I'm just going to jump down, actually, I'll go through here. I click on my dashboard. Oh, I clicked on the one I just created. There we go. And I guess before I jump in, you can see where you've assigned units. You can add another unit if you want to add another project for them to work on. And then there's some information here for you, which is kind of nice. You can see what videos they have watched. Sometimes, you know, the kids will be asking questions and I know it's in the video. And I'm like, hey, have you watched the video? And they're like, oh yeah, I watched it. And this is a good checkpoint of like, did they really watch it? No, they didn't. Okay. And really encouraging, not depending on the teacher for all the answers, like empowering them, like, you can watch this video and learn from it. Maybe we can sit down and watch it together and teach them how to pause the video and go do the work in the other tab and then come back and hit play again. So sometimes kids just need a little bit of extra assistance, but I think it's really important to encourage them to really make sure that they're watching those videos before they're asking questions. You can also click project submitted. So once these students have submitted a project, they'll populate here by name, or you can click individually on their name to see what projects they've submitted. There are some surveys built in about computer science that they may take throughout their work. And so you can also see their results as well here. So if I go back to my class as well, you can look at, when you go to people, you can look at students' work by clicking on their name here, then all their projects would populate there as well. So there's multiple ways that you can see the work that they have done. So if I go back to my unit here and I click view unit, I can click start here, and they can click start here, or they can click on a specific part of the lesson if they've already started previously. So they can click right here and start at the beginning if they wanted to, and then that's where that video is. Now, I kind of showed this a little bit earlier. I always watch this video with my students. We watch it as a class. I work with like 3rd, 4th, 5th graders. And so I just feel like it's a good point of like, let's all start on the same page. Me making sure that they've seen this video, kind of answering some questions. Sometimes I'll even pause when it's showing them logging in and like getting started. I will pause and show them my other tab of what it actually looks like. And it's kind of like just giving that direction twice and really showing and making sure that they understand what it is they're going to be doing. Then down below is all the access for making those letters. I think because you guys said you could hear it, I'm going to go ahead and play the video again now that we're kind of coming back to that, so that you guys can hear the project.
I teach CS First classes, and I'm a team leader with 4-H, America's largest youth organization where kids learn by doing.
Yeah! In this activity, you'll use code to
drum roll, please.
Animate a name! Computer science uses code to give computers instructions, which is super cool because you can create anything you can imagine.
Computer science is a subject you can study in school, and it's also a career or something you can do just for fun.
You could use computer science to protect the environment, make music, launch rocket ships, save lives, and so much more.
Today you'll use computer science concepts like sequencing, events, and loops to animate a name.
To start, choose a word to animate. You could choose your name, a pet's name, an animal, a sport, a place, or anything you like.
Your animation can express the emotion or personality of the word, tell a story, or just dance and be silly. It's all up to you!
After watching this video, click the Starter Project link. This will open Scratch in a new tab. Scratch uses code blocks to give characters called sprites instructions like when a sprite is clicked, make it change color. After opening Scratch, return to this tab and choose videos to learn how to add and animate letters to make your project come to life. Watch as many videos and add as many letters as you like. And here's a helpful trick. While you work, pause a video and go to the Scratch tab to complete a step in your project. Or better yet, rearrange your windows to show Scratch and a video at the same time. Fiona, what did you make for your project?
I animated the name of my 4-H club.
Wow! Well, I animated the name of my home country, Colombia.
Now it's your turn. Open Scratch in a new tab. Title your project with the name you're going to animate. Return to this tab and select a video. Watch the video and complete the steps in your project. Then, watch more videos to complete your animation.
It's time to get creative.
It's time to get coding.
All right, so that kind of gives you a good overview of the project. Like I said, I think it's super engaging and showing the project, but also like really breaking step by step for the students to get started. And then because they have access to it, they can watch that video over and over, right? Like that's their resource. So if they missed it or they went to the bathroom during your instruction, like they have that video to watch. So when they are ready to get started, this is the part that they often miss is the link over here. That's kind of one suggestion. I think it was one that I had given Google is a lot of kids don't notice that little blue button over there that says starter project, but that is what they will click on and it will open up Scratch for CS First. And I'm not sure if you guys can give me feedback, but my computer is making it seem like it doesn't want to share my CS First or seeing Scratch. I'm guessing because it is an account. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can log into my regular Scratch account. I'm guessing because I am like, it's probably like some kind of protection. Okay, it'll let me show you it in the regular Scratch, so that's fine. So within Scratch, the objects that they're going to manipulate are called sprites. So this cat is a sprite. And then I always can tell the kids that if you are talking about characters, a lot of times characters talk and interact and that kind of thing. But in coding, we might want a letter to move. For example, we're making animate a name. I might want the letters in my name to move. Those aren't really characters. And so sprite is more of a general term for anything that we're going to manipulate with code. And so I want to get rid of the cat. The starter project already has it gone and has letter A. So I'm just going to kind of catch myself up to that. And I can delete that. And then to add a new one, you get this menu here. So I'm going to search and then there is a tab of letters. And we'll make my name with Jenkard. So then I have the code here. I can drag it and move it around within my screen. And then if I'm like, I want my letter to spin or bounce or do something, I want to add that interaction. That's where Google CS First comes in with showing them exactly the code that would need to be put in place to make those things happen. And so let's see if I can jump over here. So if I go back to my resources, it's not going with me. I'll try this again. I have all those options. So if I wanted to, let's say, make my letter spin, I would click on that and then a new video pops up. Now, what's kind of tricky for kids is they see a video pop and they're like, it's the same video. No, it's not the same video. Like there's a different video for each one. So I kind of point out to them, it says spin at the top. This is a new video. This will show how to make a letter spin. And again, she starts at the very beginning. I'm just going to kind of show you. So she shows another example of a spinning letter. And then she gets into the code. So she starts from adding the letter, which I think is awesome. Again, like I said, a lot of times tutorials skip they make assumptions. Oh, you already know how to add the letter in. And now we're going to show you how to code it. This does not assume anything. It assumes that they need to go and find the letter, decide what they're going to use, and then it shows them how to code it. So that's what I love about this. The videos are very great. So like pointing out the motion up here. So then I can jump over to my And this is a big thing, is like teaching kids to go back and forth between tabs. You know, it's tricky. I mean, when you get down to like second and third grade, I think this year, because of COVID, kids are going to be they're going to be experts next year. But flipping between tabs is like a skill, right? Like everybody makes fun of me because I have 100 tabs open like all the time. But that's a skill that kids, they have to learn how to do. And so it's kind of a good, learning to go between the tutorial video and then the actual Scratch website where they're building. So it told me go to motion, and then the video might have different things, but I can have it turn. This is where it's so exciting because there's so many different things you can start talking about, 15 degrees. What is 15 degrees? And changing that and altering it. So I can tell it to go 90 degrees, and maybe I want that to repeat, so I can get into some other things here. And I probably want to create some kind of start, which is called an event. So maybe when I click the green flag. So now when I click the green flag, my J should rotate, and it's going really fast. And so I've animated it. I've done something. Now I don't like how fast it was going. So some things that they'll kind of learn and figure out is adding some weights in here. So let's see what that does. Now it's kind of slowed down. Now there's a second between each 90-degree turn. And this is just where it's experimentation. It's playing around and finding out what's in here. There's some different events as well. So they can do some different interaction with when a key is pressed. So this says when space bar is pressed, and we can actually change that to be a different key as well. So it could be like right arrow. And now I can manipulate my motion with a key on my keyboard. So that's kind of like the gist of it. And then they can add more letters. So again, they would just go add a new sprite, and they can actually draw their own as well. So if they want to draw their own letter, they can do that. Using different things. So like I have an A, so maybe I want to use a basketball for my A. It kind of looks like an O, right? So I can go over to costumes, and I can add the little tail of my A onto this basketball. I can draw on it. Let's see if I can make this black. And now that looks a little bit more like an A because I added the tail to it. So that is kind of just a gist of looking at Scratch as a creation tool. There's so much more to it. The more they dig in, the more brave they get and kind of figuring things out. I will tell you, Animate a Name is hands down one of the best things to get started with. The animated Google logo is where I used to start. But some of them don't care about the Google logo. So it's not exciting. When you are animating your name, it's personal. They get to share what they love. Maybe it's a softball team name, or, she shared that she did Columbia where she grew up. So it becomes personal, and that's when kids get invested, right? When they get to make it about themselves. And that's just really exciting for them. Some of them will figure out how to add backgrounds and sound effects. The sound effects are super fun. And drawing their own. You know, some of your students are very artistic and they'll just go straight in here into costumes and they can totally create their own. So I can create, sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of doing that. Let's go here. Oh my goodness, clicking too fast. There is a pen if I can get it to. Now it's not showing up. Why is it not hovering? There we go. Now it's hovering. I can go to paint and I can create my own. So I can draw my own in, I need a stylus to make it look pretty, but you can draw your own letters. So this, you know, it really fits the needs of all students, I feel like. You have the kids that want to completely freehand draw their letters. You have the ones that want to stick with the basic letters. You have ones that'll get creative and they'll get the people that look like the shape of an A or a different letter, which is just really exciting to me and why I love Scratch. There are a lot of different programs out there for teaching kids to code and getting them, but Scratch and Google CS First together, to me, have a more overarching theme of teaching kids computer science, giving them purpose, and really allowing them to be creators. It's not as scripted as some of the others. You know, some of the kids don't watch the videos. They don't want to sit and watch how to make a letter spin, and that is okay. I encourage you to let go. And if you have the kid that just wants to dive in and figure it out, that's great. Now, when they start going, well, I want to do this and I want to do this and I don't know how to do this. Again, I told you Google CS First is like for those teachers who don't have the computer science degree. Maybe you've never used Scratch before. Don't be intimidated by that. Just encourage them to go back to the videos and watch something. And sometimes they'll be like, that's not exactly what I want it to do. And I'm like, that's okay. Watch that and see how you can think about how you can manipulate that code a little bit to make it do what you want it to do. Sometimes the videos will inspire something else. They'll see a button nearby, like, oh, I see, let's see, when I was looking at the motion, you know, there's multiple ways to make a letter spin around in circles. There's two different directions. There's different events that I can trigger that image. So getting kids to really be okay with exploring and trying things out. It's funny, my husband and I have been finishing our basement. And we've made some mistakes, like we've nailed, screwed things into the wall and had to take it down. And my husband is a software engineer. And, you know, he said, you know what I love about coding? If you mess up, it's so much easier to fix it. Like you can just undo it with code and you didn't ruin an entire app or website. You can test it right there and fix it. Whereas when you're doing construction, when you mess something up, you have to completely take something apart physically and possibly ruin the materials that you have used. So I think that's the joy of coding and computer science, is teaching kids to make mistakes and explore and try things and fail at things, and that's okay. The last piece that I just encourage us to kind of think through is really think about how we integrate. Because I've been a gen ed teacher most of my career. This past year, I was a STEM teacher, so I got a little bit more freedom of doing coding and computer science just for the mere fact of doing that. But I don't think that it should be done all in one class. It's not just in STEM class. It's not just in computer class or whatever. I really feel like computer science can be integrated into every subject. And so I think that's something that we have to really think about. And I hope that you're already kind of have your wheels spinning. As I showed you on the Google CS First website, there's like 5 lessons right at the top that are specifically ELA integration. But if you think about math, the X and Y coordinates is how you code things in Scratch. If you want a sprite to be in a certain location or move to a certain location, you use the X and Y coordinates. So it's a great way to teach coordinate grids. Turning, degrees, we've used that a lot in coding this year. We've learned about making shapes and making an object move in a certain shape. You get into 90-degree angles, a square. If they're moving in a straight line, if you're making a square, what are those straight lines going to be? Oh, they're going to be all the same amount. In microbit, they do by centimeters. And so that's what they code in. But it's amazing once you get in how much it integrates with math and reading and writing, creating presentations. Let's see. Let me go back. I think I skipped it. Kind of some ideas of thinking here. It's a great way to create a presentation. So like our kids, you probably made 1 million Google Slides this year, maybe PowerPoint if you're in Microsoft. Or maybe you got into Adobe Spark a little bit. That's kind of a fun way to make a presentation. But if you can use Scratch to make a presentation, you can make it interactive. My kids used, we made interactive museum exhibits, and they coded all their information. They made some informational videos on their topic, and then they coded by button. When this button is pressed, it will play this video or this slide with information on it. And they hooked it up to Makey Makey and coded it to be the different keys. And then they connected the Makey Makey to their museum exhibit, to where when people touched different parts of their exhibit, then that video played to share information about that part in their exhibit presentation. So that's kind of that's maybe a step up, but when you start here with Google CS First, then it starts to open the door to bigger projects in ways that they can really integrate it. Designing games. There's a whole unit on designing games in Scratch. One time for spelling, I was like, create a spelling game to practice your spelling words this week. A lot of kids made little paper games, game boards, whatever. And I had a couple kids that were like, hey, can we use Scratch to build our game? Fabulous. Perfect. So it took them all week to figure out how to build this game to practice their spelling words. But while they were building that game, they were practicing their spelling words, which was exciting. And then I mentioned earlier the example about creating the app for our PBL, but designing an app or program or website or something within Scratch to help somebody. So kind of that design thinking process, bringing in the SEL of helping someone else, having empathy for others. We've done that for book characters, so it doesn't have to be a real life problem necessarily in the school or classroom. I mean, that definitely makes it more authentic. But sometimes, especially with the littles, you're designing something for a book character. And that's just as exciting for them. They love connecting with book characters and helping them. So I think there's lots of ways to tie it in. And like I mentioned at the beginning, like computer science is everywhere. No matter what people tell you, if, not everybody's going to code. Yeah, that's absolutely 100% true. I do not want the world to be all coders. I do think it's important for kids to understand the impact of computer science, how it works, and, just that way of thinking, of solving problems using technology. A lot of my kids that are very artistic or into movie making and that kind of thing, I love sharing about Pixar, because Pixar has some great videos out there that talk about how the artists, they use code to make grass like move. And it's not really something you notice in the movies until they show you like an example where the grass isn't moving, and you realize like how much more realistic it is when that grass is moving. But it's all done by code. They don't draw every little motion anymore. They do it with computer science. And so that's kind of a fun field to show them how computer science is used. These are some books that I really love. If you are interested in kind of getting more into coding or computer science or robotics, any of that, these are all some of my favorite books that I've read, and a few resources there that you can check out. Code.org also has some great stats if you're trying to bring it into your school and find purpose in building a why and getting your admin on board. These are all great resources, but there's also some great stats on like Code.org and these 3 websites listed there of building that why and its importance in having in our schools. That is all I have for you today. I hope that you are excited now about Google CS First or just computer science in general. There's a lot of great resources out there, but I will be honest, Google CS First is definitely one of my favorite ones. I think it is the most accessible for all teachers. You really don't need any experience to get started with Google CS First. And so that is all I have for you today. So feel free to leave comments. I'll try to check in and answer some questions if you have any, or you can shoot me an email or reach out on Twitter, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks for hanging out with me today.